Welcome to True Reddit Reads, where stories that sound like they belong in a movie are told in the real voices of those who lived them. In today's episode, you'll hear one of the most painful and bitter stories of broken friendship, emotional manipulation, and the long journey of rebuilding a life, piece by piece. It all began with a message that seemed harmless. You should probably sit this baby shower out. But behind those words was a years-long scheme filled with whispered gossip, venomous rumors, and nights spent checking security cameras out of fear for her daughter's safety. Yet this isn't a story about a woman who broke under pressure. This is the story of a woman who stood up, fought back, and reclaimed her life with resilience, love, and firm, healthy boundaries. If you've ever been betrayed by a best friend, manipulated by family, or pushed to your breaking point, this story will remind you you are not alone. Chapter 1. When a 20-year friendship ended over a baby shower. I never thought a 20-year friendship could end over a baby shower. But it did, and I wasn't the one who ended it. Haley and I were inseparable from elementary school through college, and even well into adulthood, we were always together. People used to joke that we were spiritual spouses. We shared everything: hair clips, hoodies, and dreams about raising kids together, becoming moms, and growing old side by side. So when Haley FaceTimed me one June afternoon holding up a pregnancy test and shouting, "It's finally positive," I burst into tears. Tears of joy, truly. There wasn't an ounce of jealousy in me. I was genuinely happy for her, even though I had lost all hope for myself. You see, just under 2 months earlier, I had suffered the most heartbreaking miscarriage of my life. The pain wasn't just physical. That baby had been a dream I'd held onto for 3 years, through endless doctor visits, hormone shots, and desperate prayers. And then it was gone. Silently. Without warning. I sobbed like a child in my car on the way to the hospital, blood running down my legs at work. I lost my baby. And the first person I called after leaving the hospital wasn't my husband, not my mom. It was Haley. I used to think that if I was ever in pain, Haley would be the first one to hold me and tell me it would all be okay. But when I called her that day, all she said was, "That's really sad," in a voice cold as ice. I could hear her typing on her phone like she was texting someone way more important. Less than 2 minutes into the call, she hung up. I told myself she was probably shocked or maybe tired from her pregnancy. I forgave her. I still wanted to host her baby shower. I asked to do it. I hand-lettered every single invitation, picked out the exact sage green tablecloths she'd pinned on Pinterest, and hunted down desserts without any ingredients, starting with the letter P because her mother-in-law was allegedly allergic to peanuts parmesan and pizza. I didn't even question it. I did it all because I loved her like a sister. Then one late evening, Haley dropped by my house. She had a gift basket in her hands full of scented candles, cookies, and flowers. I opened the door, thinking she came to hug me to say thank you. But when I wrapped my arms around her, she didn't hug back. She stood, stiff arms limp at her sides, like she didn't know what to do with them. "Can we talk?" she asked. Her voice was strange. It wasn't the Haley I knew. All the warmth was gone. I nodded. And then she said, "I think you shouldn't come to the baby shower. My mom says it's bad luck to have someone who's had a miscarriage at the party." I don't really believe in that stuff, but I also think you'd kind of bring the vibe down. I tried to reassure her, told her I was truly happy for her, that my pain didn't take away my kindness. She just mumbled a few sounds forced, a frozen smile, then checked her watch and said she had to go because she had an emergency at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday. I didn't fully grasp what had just happened. Not until the next morning when I got her message, "Hey hun, just wanted to make sure you understood about the baby shower. Since you're kind of emotional and fragile lately, I just don't want you having a breakdown at the party. My sister will come by to pick up all the stuff. I'll pay you once I see the receipts. Thanks, 45 handwritten invitations, nearly $800 in decorations, 3 weeks of crafting giant paper flowers by hand, all of it, treated like a transaction at a birthday supply store. I collapsed onto the floor, not because I lost the baby shower, but because I realized I had just lost Haley, my best friend. And the worst part was, she didn't even think she had done anything wrong. Chapter 2. When one door closed and a new nightmare began, I thought I was used to loss. I had already lost a child, a piece of my future I had dreamed about night after night. But losing Haley, that was a different kind of loss. It was like looking into a once familiar room full of memories only to find it hollow and cold. No one left to turn the light on anymore. On the day of Haley's baby shower, I didn't do anything. No social media scrolling, no replying to texts. I just lay in bed, numb with a kind of sadness so heavy, it drained the will to eat. It wasn't until 8 p.m. that I finally picked up my phone. And like a final dagger to the chest, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok were flooded with vibrant party photos, people posing next to chocolate fountains, pastel backdrops, hashtag after hashtag, yours. Amy made it magical. Best sister, ever praise after praise, for Haley's little sister, the one who'd taken over the entire baby shower plan. I didn't feel jealous of Amy. I just felt erased, like I had never existed in any of it. A stranger had replaced the space I had built for years. At first I wanted to stay silent, to just disappear quietly, but the pain, it lingered. I missed Haley even when my rational mind told me I shouldn't. I kept asking myself, did I do something wrong? Am I just too sensitive? The kinds of questions victims ask themselves when they're abandoned without explanation. Then I did something I knew deep down was reckless. I blocked Haley on every platform, deleted my Instagram, temporarily deactivated Facebook. Not because I was angry, but because I couldn't bear to watch her live the life I had once dreamed of, while I was still struggling to find solid ground again. Life went on. I wasn't as naive anymore, but I kept trying. I went to therapy, I went back to work. I reconnected with old friends I had neglected for years, all because I'd poured everything into Haley. And then David came along. He wasn't the type to sweep you off your feet instantly, but there was a quiet kindness about him, the kind I didn't know I'd been missing until I felt it. He never asked how I planned to get over it. He just showed up, quietly, patiently. And after a long time, I realized I could love again. We got married 2 years after we met, and a few months later, Emma arrived like a tiny miracle. I thought maybe all the old wounds had finally healed when I saw her for the first time. She had my eyes, but David's determined little mouth. It was hard to believe that a brand new life could grow from all those broken pieces. My life wasn't perfect, but it was steady. I had a small family, a stable job, a circle of genuine friends, and one very important lesson: be careful who you keep in your life. Then one afternoon, my phone rang. The caller ID said Amy Haley's sister. I blinked at the name, stunned, and then she said, "I'm pregnant, and if you're open to it, I'd like you to be the godmother." I thought I misheard her. Memories of Haley came rushing back, the 45 hand-lettered invitations, the sage green table, the cookie basket handed to me like a bribe, and then being cast out like a ghost no one wanted to acknowledge. "Are you serious?" I blurted out. Amy chuckled softly, but her voice was steadier than I expected. "I'm serious. I know who you are. I saw everything from the beginning. And you're the one I trust most to help protect my child. I don't know if it was fate or the universe handing me a second chance." But I nodded. And in that moment, I wasn't the victim of a broken friendship anymore. I was the chosen one. Not because of blood, but because someone believed I was worthy. Chapter 3. When the chosen one drove the betrayer insane. Being a godmother was never something I longed for, honestly. After what happened with Haley, I practically developed an allergy to the words baby shower. But when Amy sat there in front of me, eyes sparkling her belly just round enough to hint at the little angel growing inside, I felt my heart soften. I didn't say yes right away. I told her, "Are you sure I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable? Especially not someone who shares your blood." Amy looked at me like I'd just said the dumbest thing in the world. "That's exactly why I'm choosing you," she said. "Because you're not blood. Because you're real. You didn't stay quiet when people were hurting. And most of all, you showed up when I needed someone, not just when it was easy." I laughed, and for the first time in years, that laugh wasn't followed by tears. From that moment on, Amy and I bonded like we were born sisters. I helped her decorate the nursery, pick out baby names, build the registry. And yes, this time I hosted the baby shower again. But this time it was different. No Pinterest boards, no curated mood colors, no bizarre requests to avoid foods starting with the letter P. Amy had only one wish. "Whatever you do, I just want to know it's done with love." And I did it. I folded dozens of paper cranes to hang from the ceiling. Amy had once told me that as a child, she believed cranes granted wishes. I baked cookies using her late grandmother's handwritten recipe from a faded old notebook Amy had kept safe for years. I called the shower A New Hope because Amy's daughter would be named Hope, and because Amy, without even realizing it, had given me hope again, too. As the day approached, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. There were moments I completely forgot I'd ever been betrayed. I believed Haley was part of the past, a closed wound. No one mentioned her anymore. She'd been silent for 2 years. So silent, I began to believe she had changed, or at least let go. I was wrong. That day was a warm Sunday. The small church where Hope's baptism was held glowed in sunlight and smelled like vanilla cake and fresh flowers. I held Hope in my arms, looked into her eyes, and silently promised, "No matter what happens, I'll protect you from people like Haley." And right then, I heard the sharp click of high heels striking the marble floor. Haley. She walked in like a ghost draped in an expensive dress, makeup flawless, but her eyes gave everything away. They didn't belong to someone showing up for her sister's special day. They belonged to someone entering a battlefield. I froze, arms tightening protectively around Hope. Haley didn't come closer. She just stood there watching, then turned silently and walked out the side door, leaving behind a coldness that cut through the summer heat like ice. I barely had time to process it when my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "How dare you make Amy betray her own family? You think you've won? I know what you're doing. I see everything." I looked up. A black SUV sat idling across the street. Behind the tinted window, I saw a familiar silhouette gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles were bone white. That was the moment I knew Haley was back. Not as a disappointed ex-friend, but as someone hurt enough to destroy everything I had. What I didn't know then was that this was only the beginning. Chapter 4. When silence turned into psychological warfare. Since that day, I haven't slept soundly. Not because of Hope. She's peaceful, safe in the arms of her mother and mine. Loved more than anything by the two women who cherish her most. No, it was because of Haley. Or more accurately, the ghost of Haley haunting my life in the form of anonymous messages, unfamiliar stares, and strange sounds outside my window at 3 a.m. I didn't tell Amy about the message Haley sent, not because I was trying to hide anything, but because I wasn't sure she was ready. She had just given birth. She was navigating the first fragile weeks of motherhood. I couldn't dump that weight on her shoulders, not because of one cryptic message from a sister she no longer trusted. But Haley didn't stop at one message. 2 days later, while I was at work, I got a text from an old friend, someone who used to be in our college group with Haley and me. She'd received a bizarre DM from an unknown account and sent me the screenshot. "Did you know your friend never recovered after her miscarriage? Don't you think it's a little weird how obsessed she is with your sister? Doesn't that seem wrong to you?" Then another message from someone else. And another. Within a week, 4 old friends had messaged me asking, "What's going on?" I didn't need to ask. I knew Haley was reaching out to everyone we'd ever known, planting seeds of doubt, rewriting the story to make it sound like I was the unstable one. that I was emotionally manipulating Amy, that I had stolen her sister, her niece, and tried to build myself a new family out of stolen pieces. She painted me as a broken woman, unable to cope with her own miscarriage, clinging obsessively to anyone with a baby like some sort of emotional leech. She twisted the truth into a weapon, making people ask themselves, wait, is something actually wrong with her? I felt exposed, like someone had torn away every layer of my privacy in front of an audience. Old Facebook posts about my miscarriage, photos from my divorce, things I had once shared in pain and vulnerability, were suddenly being passed around like ammunition. Haley didn't confront me head on. She poisoned me, one drop at a time. It all came to a head one Saturday afternoon when I was picking Emma up from daycare. One of the teachers pulled me aside, her face tight with concern. There was a woman here earlier. She said she was your sister. She asked about your family, asked if Emma ever seems sad or shows signs of distress. We didn't answer her questions, but we weren't sure if we should tell you. I nearly collapsed. Sister, I only have one sister, and it's Haley, and she was now trying to frame me as an unfit mother. She was trying to infiltrate the daycare, trying to get close to my daughter. This wasn't something I could be polite about anymore. I looked the teacher in the eye and said, if she comes back again, call me immediately. Or better yet, call the police. When I told David, my husband, he fell silent. But he didn't yell. He didn't rant. He simply got up, grabbed his toolbox, and began installing security cameras. That night, he stayed up until 2 a.m., wiring the surveillance system around our house, while I sat beside our daughter watching the windows like a hawk. A few days later, the cameras caught something. A black SUV parked in front of our house at 5:43 a.m. The driver held up a phone recording our front door. I zoomed in on the footage. She was filming our house. The address, the name of Emma's preschool reflected on the car window. Haley didn't have to show up. She let the camera do the terrorizing for her. And I understood then this wasn't just about words anymore. This was psychological warfare. She didn't want to apologize. She didn't want to make amends. She wanted me isolated. She wanted me broken. She wanted people to whisper behind my back, question my mental health, look at me as a ticking time bomb. She wanted to take Emma, take my friends, my job, my dignity, just like she felt stripped of all those things when Amy chose me instead of her. I could have stayed quiet, but I've done that before, and all it earned me was pitying looks. This time I wasn't going to bow my head. Not for her, not for anyone. Not when I have a daughter, not when I have Amy, and not when I've already lost everything once, because this time I'm not letting anyone take it from me again. Chapter 5. When the poison spreader forgot. She was planting in a field that could fight back. I used to believe that Haley was just a hurt woman reacting out of pain. But after that week, I knew better. She wasn't just hurting. She was running a full-blown operation, strategic, intentional, coordinated, designed to destroy my credibility, smear my reputation, and if possible, strip me of my right to be a mother. And the worst part, she was succeeding. One of my old friends, someone I used to be very close with, messaged me, her tone wrapped in fake concern. I'm not trying to judge or anything. But are you sure you're not getting a little too attached to Amy? I just heard something random. Hope you're not upset. I was upset. Not because of the question, but because someone was now questioning my character, all thanks to the lies of a woman who once called me her sister. Then came the hit at work. My boss called me into his office. He didn't accuse me of anything, but he looked uneasy. An anonymous email had been sent to HR claiming she had a miscarriage, a history of mental instability, and a divorce. I don't believe someone like that should represent the company's image. I didn't need to guess who sent it. The language was identical to phrases Haley had used in past messages: emotionally unstable, clings to others, lacks resilience. All things I'd once heard her say when she was still pretending to be my friend. No one at work believed the email, at least not yet. But that yet, it sits like a seed in the soil. You can't unplant a rumor. You can only watch how far it spreads. That's when I realized Haley wasn't trying to scare me. She was trying to suffocate me layer by layer. Friends, colleagues, neighbors, parents of the kids in Emma's class. One mom I used to meet for coffee suddenly avoided me at the playground. When I finally confronted her, she stammered, actually, Haley broke down crying at Starbucks last week. Said you stole her whole family after she lost her first child. I laughed bitterly. The only child Haley ever lost was our friendship. A few days later, I was banned from a new local Facebook group called Protecting Our Children. The cover photo, a picture of my daughter Emma playing at the park, her face fully visible. I had been cropped out of the image. Whoever took that picture had followed us, watched us. You know what's the cruelest part? Haley never had to say, I want to ruin you. All she had to do was plant the right seeds of doubt in the right minds at the right time. And others did the dirty work for her. I used to ask myself, am I overreacting? Until one afternoon, Maria, another mom, approached me after daycare pickup. She gently said, my ex-husband did this exact thing during our custody battle. Lies, manipulation, turning the community against me. I recognize every sign. But Maria didn't just offer sympathy. She brought receipts. 3 other parents had also received messages, invitations to join the child protection group from an account using a profile picture suspiciously similar to Haley's. One of them had taken full screenshots. In the messages, the sender claimed I used to be the sister of Hope's godmother. But I can't stay silent knowing a child is being raised in an unstable environment. Chills. Actual chills. Haley didn't just want to ruin me. She was trying to reconstruct me, craft a twisted version of who I was, then tape it to my face like a toxic mask. That's when I began documenting everything. David, my husband, called it our Cold War counterintelligence operation. Every anonymous message, every unfamiliar car parked near our home, every fake account spreading lies about me. I archived it all. Every surveillance video. Every forwarded message from parents. Every time she secretly filmed Emma at the park saved. I knew Haley was watching. But this time I wasn't just defending myself. I was preparing to fight back. Not with smears, not with rumors, but with truth, with evidence, with an entire community beginning to see her for who she truly was. Haley thought her poison would spread unchecked, but she forgot something. The strongest immunity is truth. And the truth, it's starting to speak up. Chapter 6. When the truth finally began to speak. I used to believe that in battles like this, manipulators always won, because they wield the most dangerous weapon, ambiguity. Half a story, half a rumor, half a tear at just the right moment. And somehow they convinced the crowd. But Haley forgot something. When you recycle the same performance too many times, people start noticing the crease in the script. Sophie was the first. She's Jake's older sister, Jake being Amy's husband, a sharp, no-nonsense woman who's allergic to drama. She messaged me one evening straight to the point. I've seen this before. 5 years ago, when Haley ruined Martha's wedding over a wine stain on the dress. Same act, tears, betrayal rumors. Martha had to move states. I nearly dropped my phone. Martha, Haley's cousin, was one of those mysteriously vanished family members I'd once wondered about. Sophie continued. Haley threatened to tell Martha's fiancé that she'd had an abortion. All because the dress which Haley had lent her got a drop of red wine on it. A complete accident. I still have the messages from that night. Want copies? I nearly cried. Not out of pain, but because for the first time, I didn't feel like I was fighting alone. And that wasn't the end. A mom from daycare, someone who had always kept her distance from the drama, became the second to speak up. She'd seen Haley at the playground secretly taking photos of Emma from a distance. When confronted, Haley claimed she was filming a story about the weather. Sound familiar? Yes, Haley always needed context to justify her suspicious behavior. But this time someone had recorded the whole thing, video footage of Haley panicking, hiding her phone, stammering and scurrying away like nothing happened. That video, combined with Sophie's screenshots and the long list of parents who had been invited to join that Protecting Our Children group, became the foundation of a full, ongoing harassment dossier. Maria and her husband, an IT engineer, helped me compile it. Every message, every unauthorized photo, every anonymous email timestamped, sourced, and verified. One morning, Maria and I sat by the printer sorting through the evidence, over 100 pieces, in just 3 weeks. 3 weeks. I didn't know whether to call it a calculated smear campaign or psychological terrorism. The climax came at a school event, a parent meeting themed around community safety and mutual respect. A few people glanced awkwardly at me, whispers, uncertain looks. Then Haley walked in. She wore a cream turtleneck, eyes swollen and red, the perfect image of a grieving victim. And she spoke. I know people say I've been causing trouble, but I'm just a sister devastated after losing my family. All because an outsider came in, divided us, and spread lies about me. She dabbed her eyes with a tissue. A mom sitting next to me sighed audibly, the kind of sigh that says, "Here we go again." And then I stood up. No tears, no attacks. I simply said, I don't need anyone here to believe me, but I have proof, footage, messages, witnesses, and I've never knocked on anyone's door at 6 a.m. to film their child. The room fell silent. Then a father raised his hand. I saw her, Haley, loitering by the school gate 2 weeks ago. Another parent added I was invited to join the Protecting Our Children group. But the content? It wasn't about protecting anyone. It was just slander. No one shouted, no one pointed fingers. But the eyes in the room said enough. Haley lost control. She stood up and screamed, "You're all being fooled. She's a liar. She miscarried and then stole my child." I didn't flinch, didn't say a word. Sometimes silence is the loudest response, and for the first time, I saw Haley get swallowed whole by the very performance she created. That night, I held Emma as she slept without fear. No cameras, no whispers. I knew the war wasn't over. Haley is the kind of person who's most dangerous when cornered. But I also knew this. I'm no longer alone. I have evidence. I have witnesses. I have my family. And most importantly, I have a community that's finally starting to see the truth. As for Haley, all she has left are old scripts and a dwindling audience. Chapter 7, When the Manipulator Lost Her Audience. After that parent meeting, I thought Haley would retreat, not because she felt shame, but because, strategically speaking, she had lost. But I overestimated her pride. She didn't back down. She escalated. 3 days later, I got a message from Amy. At midnight, "Sis, you need to come to my house. Now." I drove over in my pajamas. Amy opened the door, wearing an oversized maternity shirt, eyes red, hands trembling as she held out her phone. "Look at this." It was a message from Haley. Says, "If you don't make your crazy friend give up being godmother, I'll send every photo from those frat parties to your husband, and to her job too." Amy collapsed onto the floor. I used to think, maybe she'd change, she whispered. I stayed quiet for so long, gave her chances, but there's nothing left to forgive now. I sat beside her, wrapped my arms around her. "You're not alone," I said. "Not this time. We see this through together." The next day, I didn't go to work. I went to the police station with a 3-inch thick folder of documentation, evidence of harassment threats, surveillance footage of Haley lingering outside my house, Emma's school, and the local park. The officer flipped through the pages, raising his eyebrows. "You've done your homework better than most victims I've seen." I gave a quiet smile. Not out of happiness, but because I wasn't a victim anymore. I was someone taking action. Meanwhile, Haley kept performing. She showed up at my mother's house, sobbing on the doorstep. "Why are you siding with strangers?" "Mom, I'm your blood. You're supposed to protect me." My mother didn't say a word. She simply stepped onto the porch, holding a stack of printed papers. Every message Haley had ever sent me, from "you'll bring down the baby shower" vibe with your miscarriage to "don't forget I know where your husband works." Mom looked Haley in the eyes and said, "Yes, you're my blood, but I didn't raise someone who hurts people like this." Haley stood frozen. Then, like a wounded animal, she turned and walked away. I wasn't there, but my mom called me right after. And for the first time in years, I heard her voice tremble, not from fear, but from anger. I always knew she was difficult, but this is unforgivable. This time I'm on your side. Don't back down. And with that, the family began to move. We held a family meeting at Amy's mom's house. Aunts, uncles, cousins, even Martha Haley's former victim joined via Zoom from another state. I didn't use harsh words. I didn't need to. I opened my laptop and played the videos, read the messages, displayed the threats, showed the anonymous posts and surveillance captures. No dramatic speeches, no tears, just the raw, unfiltered truth. Halfway through the meeting, Haley stormed in. Apparently, her mother had accidentally sent her the meeting address. She burst into the room like it was her final act, hoping she could flip the narrative with a flood of tears. "You're all being manipulated. That girl, she's always been jealous of me. Mom, you've always loved her more. This whole family is against me." No one said a word, and that silence was Haley's real downfall. She was waiting for someone to defend her. No one did. Not even her husband, the man who'd stayed quiet for years, stood up and calmly said, "I've filed for separation. And if you keep threatening people, I'll use every piece of evidence I have to win full custody." That was the end. Haley crumbled. No rage, no more tears, just a long, suffocating silence. Afterward, the family signed an informal no-contact agreement, our own version of a restraining order. No more relaying messages, no neutral parties, no polite excuses to stay connected. As for me, I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt relieved. More importantly, I felt free. Free from a manipulator I once called a friend. Free from the guilt of being chosen over someone else. Free to live a life that Haley no longer controlled. Chapter 8. When peace was no longer a luxury. After that family meeting, I didn't go home feeling happy exactly, but for the first time in years, I felt peace, without also feeling like I had to look over my shoulder. No more anonymous messages, no more wary glances at school drop-off, no more whispers behind my back planted by Haley's poisoned words. I used to think peace came from forgiveness, but now I realize peace comes from boundaries. Clear, unapologetic, non-negotiable boundaries. A week later, Hope was baptized. I stood inside the church holding her in my arms, wearing the cream-colored dress Amy had picked out for me, with tiny embroidered letters over the heart that read, "Best Godmother Ever." Next to me was David, the man who had walked through the fire with me. In front of us was Emma, waving at Hope, like the two of them had known each other in some other life. No sign of Haley. No one mentioned her. And the beautiful part was no one needed to. We had moved forward, and everyone could feel it. After the ceremony, I carried Hope out to the churchyard. The late afternoon sun filtered through the trees, catching in her hair like scattered gold. I remember thinking maybe even God was smiling with us. Then Amy turned to me and whispered, "I named her Hope, not just because of what I wished for, but because you're the proof that even when everything falls apart, someone can still rebuild. Not with blood, not with titles, but with real love." I smiled. My lips trembled, but I didn't cry. I had cried enough. After the baptism, we gathered in Amy's backyard with a few close friends. Nothing extravagant, just some candles, lemon tarts, and soft laughter under the fading light. One mom, who had stayed silent through the storm, approached me with a glass of lemonade. "I used to believe Haley," she admitted. "She told stories so well. But then I realized, innocent people don't tell their truth. They live it. And the way you've lived said more than words ever could." I nodded. No speeches, no justifications. I was still here. And Haley, wasn't. From what I've heard, Haley is now in therapy. I'm not happy about that, but I'm not bitter either. I don't want her to suffer. I just want her to stop hurting people. If therapy helps her get there, I hope she sticks with it. Not for me, but for her daughter's sake. As for me, I've changed too. I've become stronger, but not harder. I've learned to say no without guilt. I choose my friends like I'd choose someone to watch my child. People who can be trusted not only when life is good, but especially when it isn't. I hosted a small gathering at my place, only the ones who stayed after the storm. We played soft music, drank wine, and laughed about how Haley once believed she was the main character. Someone joked if she knew she'd been written out of the story forever, she'd lose her mind. I just smiled, because I no longer care about her. I care about the ones who chose to stay even though they weren't bound by blood. I watched Emma run through the yard, her tiny hand clasped in hopes. Two little girls, one a symbol of the past I thought had broken me, and the other of the future I rebuilt with love. And I knew I had won, not through schemes, not through tears, but by holding onto my worth and refusing to bow to someone who once saw me as a pawn. Chapter 9. When Forgiveness Didn't Need an Apology. I used to believe that in order to forgive, someone had to say they were sorry first. There had to be tears. Remorse, a heartfelt admission I was wrong and I regret it. But after everything I've come to understand, something simple forgiveness isn't a gift I give Haley. It's a gift I give myself. I didn't forgive Haley so she could feel better. I forgave her so I wouldn't let her take up space in my mind for even one more minute. Life after Hope's baptism has been strangely peaceful. Not perfect, motherhood is never peaceful, but peaceful in a way that comes from the inside. The kind of peace you earn after being torn apart too many times and still choosing kindness. Emma started ballet. Every week I take her to class standing in the waiting room with other moms chatting about ballet shoes and snack time. No side eyes, no whispered doubts. Just normal moms talking about normal things. Amy went back to work 6 months after giving birth. Every weekend I watch Hope so she can have a few hours of adult time reading, getting a massage, or sometimes just catching up on sleep. The three of us, David, Amy, and me, have built this tiny safety net around two little girls. Tight enough to make sure no one falls, but flexible enough to let each of us breathe. And I started writing. Not to get revenge, but to record everything from the day I was uninvited to that baby shower to the night Emma called me her supermom after I calmed her nightmare with a hug. I write to remember that I survived. I write so that one day, when Emma feels like the world's turned its back on her, she can open her mother's journal and see that I once stood in the rubble too and rebuilt it all with my bare hands. I still hear bits and pieces about Haley, that she's living alone, that her husband temporarily took their child to live with his mother until things settle, that she's now attending therapy regularly, that she tried joining another parent group and was denied, that she started posting vague inspirational quotes on a new Facebook account about healing her energy. I don't care. Not because I'm cruel, but because I'm too tired to care about someone who once tried to destroy my world. I've kept all the evidence. It's packed away in a locked plastic box in the attic, not as a threat, but as a reminder that I walked through that fire, and no one gets to erase that. One winter afternoon, I was making tea, when Emma came running into the kitchen, her face glowing. Mom Hope called me her big sister. I smiled. Well, you are older than her. Emma nodded, then paused and asked Mom, are we a real family? We don't look like each other. Her question stopped me for a moment. Then I knelt down, held her hand, and looked into those familiar eyes, the same ones I see in the mirror every day. Sweetheart family isn't about who looks alike. Family is who stays when you cry, who shows up when you need them, who chooses you not because they have to, but because they want to. Just like I chose you. Just like I chose Hope. Just like Aunt Amy chose me. Emma blinked. then hugged me so tight I thought my heart might burst. I know there will still be hard days. One day my daughter may ask, why doesn't Aunt Haley visit us anymore? Someday Hope will grow up and ask, why isn't there a picture of Mommy's sister in our house? And when those days come, I'll tell them the truth. No more, no less. Not to spread hate, but to teach them love is the most precious thing we have, and no one, no matter who they are, has the right to weaponize it. I learned that lesson the hard way, but I walked through it. And now I am no longer the woman who was betrayed after a miscarriage. I am a mother, a wife, a chosen sister, a survivor. I am someone who learned that peace doesn't come from getting someone else to say sorry, but from finally forgiving yourself for trusting the wrong person and still being brave enough to love again. Chapter 10. When Family Became a Choice. Not Blood. 6 months after Hope's baptism, I found myself standing at the front of a church once again. But this time there were no tears, no lingering shadows, no black SUV parked just out of sight with someone watching from behind tinted windows plotting revenge. Just children's laughter bundles of lavender on wooden pews, and something I thought I'd lost forever trust. I stood there as godmother again, but it didn't feel like a ceremonial title. It felt like a declaration I've been here from the beginning, and I'm not going anywhere. Hope looked up at me, grinning wide, her chubby fingers wrapped tightly around mine as the priest gave his blessing. Amy stood beside me, her hand resting gently but firmly on my shoulder. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't just chosen to be a godmother. I had been chosen to be part of a family we built together with effort, honesty, and the scars of old wounds. Haley wasn't there. No one mentioned her. And honestly, for the first time, I didn't think about her at all during the entire ceremony. I didn't wonder, what will she do next? I didn't scan for suspicious vehicles. I didn't brace myself for another storm, because I knew that story was over. Not because Haley changed, but because I'd stopped playing a role in her narrative. We celebrated afterward in Amy's backyard. No giant cakes, no fancy sound system, just a quiet afternoon, sandwiches, fruit juice, and toddlers splashing in the kiddie pool. I sat on a wooden bench, watching Emma teach Hope how to jump rope, even though Hope was still crawling. David chatted with another preschool dad. Amy laughed the kind of laugh that made it hard to believe she'd ever cried. And me, I just exhaled. Really, truly exhaled. For the first time in years, I carried no weight on my chest. No question of am I overreacting. No guilt from being manipulated. No hesitation in saying no. A daycare mom came over, gently placed her hand on my shoulder and said, "Thank you for not staying silent. If you hadn't spoken up, I'd still be letting my daughter play with people she shouldn't have been near." I smiled. I didn't say anything, because I knew she wasn't just thanking me. She was thanking the future version of herself, the version brave enough to stand up even when no one else would. A week later, I received a package. No return address. Inside was an old photo album, pictures from college, me and Haley baby-faced and inseparable. Hugging at camping trips, wearing matching pajamas, writing glittery Christmas cards together. Tucked inside the final page was a small note: "I'm not sorry, but I get it. You're stronger than I thought. I hope your kid doesn't end up like you, and I'm trying to make sure mine doesn't end up like me." No signature, I didn't need one. I don't know where Haley is now, what she's doing, whether she's truly changed. And the strange thing is, I no longer need to know. I placed the album in a drawer and locked it, not to forget, but to close, to end things properly, not with a dramatic twist, not with a tearful reconciliation, but with quiet, with release, and a promise to myself I will never apologize for protecting myself and the people I love. My family, though not connected by blood, grows stronger every day. Not with grand gestures, but with small acts: getting Emma to school on time, reading her bedtime stories, taking turns watching Hope so Amy can focus on her job. We're not perfect, but we have something no one can take from us. We chose each other not because we had to, but because we wanted to. And if someone asked me today, what is family? I would answer in my own voice. Family is the one who stays when everyone else walks away. Thank you for listening all the way to the end of this story. If there's one thing to take away from this journey, it's this: blood doesn't make a family choice, and kindness do. Some wounds may never fully disappear, but they can heal. And sometimes the deepest revenge is simply living a life that is peaceful, radiant, with no room left for those who once tried to drag you down. If you've ever survived a toxic friendship, faced silent psychological warfare, or are trying to rise from the wreckage, remember, you are not alone. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss more powerful, emotional, and true stories just like this right here on True Reddit Reads. We'll be back with stories that'll leave you saying, I can't believe this really happened. See you next time.